have we have a few special guests with us tonight. The first person here that I'd like to introduce is Todd over there, Todd Kamelhar. Todd is the executive producer on Last Play Shea. We also have Dave Rosenthal, who is the keyboardist for Billy Joel's band. And also we have Jeff over here. Jeff is the director of the archives, plus he's also Billy Joel's road manager. So we'll have a nice Q&A afterwards with them. So it's going to be a phenomenal Q&A. So Joe, if you can, let's lower those lights and we'll be ready to go.
Everybody's talking about the new sound, funny but it's still rock and roll to me.
And Todd, of course, is not going to let me outdo any sort of event, so he, of course, is going to bring some special guests with him. So let me tell you who we have up here with us. First, we have Todd. I've been talking about him. He's a Queens native from Howard Beach, same place where I'm from. He's a partner in Gelfand, Renner, and Feldman, LLP, GRF, which is a business management firm specializing in financial services to clients in the fields of music, motion pictures, television, and other creative and performing arts. In his role as business manager, Todd oversees the day-to-day operations of many Billy Joel's business, including touring and publishing of the film. So that's Todd right there. Right next to Todd, we are very lucky to have Dave Rosenthal. Dave is a graduate of Boston's prestigious Berklee School of Music. In addition to touring with Billy Joel, Dave has performed and or recorded with many top artists, including Bruce Springsteen, Elton John, Cyndi Lauper, Robert Palmer, and Whitesnake. He arranged and conducted music for The Last Play Shea and composed part of the film score. Nice job. And finally, but definitely not least, and one of the stars of Last Play at Shea, is our lookalike of Tim Dugan, back right over there, is Jeff Schock, who has been working with Billy Joel since the 1970s. In the course of Jeff's extensive career in the entertainment industry, he's worked with the Rolling Stones, Luther Vandross, James Taylor, Kenny Loggins, Carly Simon, and others. Jeff currently serves as the director of the Billy Joel Archives. So thank you for being here tonight. What we're going to be doing is I'm going to walk around, or Lauren will help me out, walking around with a microphone, and you'll be more than, I want you to ask questions. But before I let you ask questions, I have to ask a question first. Okay, first of all, whose idea was it to come up with all those parallels in the film? And how did that come about?
It was one of the executive producers of the film is Greg Whiteley. Greg Whiteley was originally, he's a director. He's won a Sundance Film Award for directing, and he was the one who was originally brought in to direct the film. He was the one who worked on what was the initial storyline of trying to put together the parallels. The original concept of why are we telling 3 or 4 or 5 stories in one really starts with Billy, and Billy didn't want to make a concert film. He doesn't believe they're concerts or films. And ironically, you can see the concert film on PBS next week. But the idea is let's document this historic event. Billy wanted to make the event special for New Yorkers. He thought that Shea was a special place because to him the Beatles are the beginning of everything in his career. So, and the Beatles came to America and made Shea Stadium important. The fact that the Mets played there was secondary. It was a historic event because the Beatles, that's where they came to America, and having equal importance was Ed Sullivan, which is where Billy first saw the Beatles. So we wanted to capture that element of the fact that he was being asked to close this place that in fact inspired him to get into music in the first place. And that concept of why he was being asked to close it and what it meant to him was kind of the basis of the storyline of the starting of his career. And then it just got broader by the coincidences of, Robert Moses and tearing down his house and the start of Shea Stadium. That really was coincidence that made for nice filmmaking, but it really didn't get fleshed out until the director came in.
Dave, what was it like playing at Shea Stadium that night?
Well, I mean, Billy said it best in the film. It was exhilarating. It was a real pinch yourself moment. I mean, here we are playing in New York at Shea Stadium, place where I've been to many times for other concerts and also for many Mets games as a kid. But it was where the Beatles played, and to have that moment where Paul McCartney came up and played, and not to mention all the other artists that we got to play with that whole evening. It was really just one of those pinnacle events of a career that I'll always remember. It was really an amazing evening, or 2 evenings, I should say.
Jeff, what was the greatest moment for you as far as working with Billy Joel all these years?
Say again?
Your greatest moment working with Billy?
Hard. There was
Get it to work with me.
That's the right answer.
Exactly.
No paycheck this week.
Greatest moment. I would say greatest moments. There's so many. Certainly the early days have the great romance. It's certainly where I got my start. As you saw in the film, I was a kind of a wayward tour manager without a suitcase, and I kind of learned the business that I admired from the sidelines, and sort of got up and running thanks to Billy. And so I think the sort of the early days, that first year in 1976 is probably, a great joyous one for me.
Thanks. I'm going to open up to the crowd. Questions, please?
Would you perhaps that have said that, Bill, would you perhaps say that, would Billy Joel be one of the best? Can I say for one thing for a moment that would Billy Joel ever be remembered for the Shea Stadium as his hometown where he comes from, a Levittown? Even if he still, after he remembers what Shea Stadium used to be like for all of his life, what would you say?
I think what, to summarize the question, would be, do you think this was considered to be his best moment, or definitely his swan song, the Billy Joel concert?
Swan Song would say an ending, and I'm not sure it's an ending. I think if it is an ending of his career, if it is the last time he plays a solo show in New York, it's something he can be proud of. But I mean, since this show, he did tour. After this, he did a tour with Elton John, and there were a lot of great moments. He played Fenway Park and Wrigley Field and Nationals Park in Washington, and so I don't know that a swan song is the right thing. If this was it the pinnacle moment, I think it certainly for Billy is a pinnacle moment. There's a couple of things in his life that I think, obviously non-professionally, the birth of his daughter would be the biggest day in his life, he would tell you. And knowing how much he loves his daughter, I would agree with that. But professionally, it's right there. Billy did go, and he was the first artist to play in the Soviet Union, and I think that would be an equally special moment, given his roots and going and playing, behind, the red curtain. It was a big the Iron Curtain would be a big moment in his life as well. But certainly, it's up there.
My question is for Dave. Playing with both Billy and Bruce Springsteen, who are both, I guess, iconic icons in the music world, despite him being from Jersey, I do believe he is a fan of a lot of New Yorkers. But playing with the both of them, who do you feel is easier to work with, Billy or Bruce, and who do you feel is better, Billy or Bruce?
Hey, let me add, he got to play with them both at the same time.
That's right.
For an Obama benefit.
We did a fundraiser for Obama when he was running for president, and we played with Bruce and Billy at the same time, which was a great event. I'm not going to pick sides, but I am going to pick sides. I mean, Billy is who he is, and I've been with him 18 years, and he's the best artist I've ever worked with by far. With Bruce Springsteen, my involvement with him has been more as a synth programmer. I did synth programming for the Rising Tour. So in addition to some of the other things I do besides orchestrating and things, I don't always play with different artists, so sometimes I wear different hats. And that was my relationship actually with Bruce. He seemed like a really cool guy, and he's obviously who he is. He's iconic as Billy is. But I really do connect with Billy's music.
Dave lives in New Jersey, so.
That's right.
No-
So I'm
no
taking a big
offense.
stance
No
here.
offense.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here today, and thank you all of you for coming. I have a question that's more of a personal nature. I was working for CBS Records and Sony Music a number of years ago when Billy was in the height of his popularity, not that it's ever dwindled. And I was there when Walter Yetnikoff helped him get the copyright back, and this all has a very personal attachment to me. What I would like to know, did Billy ever fully recover financially after what happened with his manager because of what Walter did for him with the copyright, and after he went touring it after that?
The answer is 100% yes.
Good. I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy to hear that.
Unfortunately for Dave, because it means he works less. But he's been with my firm. We've represented him since 1989, and I can assure you he never has to work again in his life, and he'll be perfectly fine. And when we did a Q&A at the Ziegfeld when we did the one night only event for this film, Walter came, and I thanked him because he gives me a lot more to work on with Billy owning his own publishing again. So a lot more revenue.
Remember, that was his 30th birthday that Walter gave him the copyrights back. That Artie Rip, who you saw in the film, had kind of taken away very, very early on in Billy's career. So there was a long struggle to get to where he was at age 30. But then at age 40, he had the difficulties with Frank management, that really cleaned him out. So he was always kind of trying to rebuild from mistakes of the past. But
And we tack on 2 divorces, and he's still doing just fine.
Yes, exactly.
Well, 2 more.
Again, Gelfand, Rennert, and Feldman, and Todd Kamelhar.
David, great job tonight to
Thank you.
coordinate this event. My name is Dennis McDermott, Alumni Director here at St. Francis College. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Did he? With Billy Joel, and especially for these young people, it seemed like he really, took care of the family. And what you're saying, did he leave a scar with him at all? I mean, it had to hurt him that he was so close to so many people, especially a manager that he trusted. When whatever happened with that, and also, what is he doing now? How's he recovering? I know he had the hip replacement and all. So if you can answer those questions.
Well, Billy is unbelievably forgiving, I would say. In actuality, it's very interesting. His way of moving on is to not hate these people. So you would expect him to hate, and people actually project hatred. He doesn't. If he saw Frank Weber today, and I think you've been with him when he's seen Frank,
Yes.
he'll smile, he'll say hello. Anybody who would seemingly he's crossed paths with or have had a negative outcome with, he actually harbors very little ill will. I think he looks back at the good times, and ultimately he landed on his feet. He's fine. Those people a lot more of them have had a lot more hard times since then than he has. So, you know, I don't think he would ever hire him again, but, you know, but no, I don't think there's a lot of ill will. And as far as his health goes, he's recovering from double hip replacement surgery, and he's doing fine. He's enjoying his semi-retirement, we'll call it, thinking about what to do next with his, you know, in this stage of his life. But, you know, he's recovering and he's feeling good, he's out enjoying his boat and spending some time in Florida, where a lot of us like to run away to when it gets cold up here. But he'll be back to Long Island when the weather gets good, I'm sure.
I would just like to say, this is not a question, it's more of a comment. I'm from Queens, and let's go Mets. Thank you.
That was against me, wasn't it? I know.
Hi.
Right over here. We'll walk around and we'll come around this way.
There's a question for Dave. Was it hard to figure out how to orchestrate the music for this, would you say, or was it pretty easy considering what you had to work with?
Well, I'm very familiar with the songs, obviously, so that's a tremendous head start. And so much of Billy's music lends itself to orchestration. It's his melodies and his chord structures. It's a very natural fit to put orchestration into his music. So it wasn't really like, you know, trying to put a square peg in a round hole or anything like that. It really works well, and it was a very enjoyable process adding the two. I think it's a good,
really well done. That's
good
why.
combination. Oh, thank you very much.
This question for Dave. In the musical movie now, how much did you have to do with it? And for the person who runs the archive, how much did they use in that, and how much did Twyla Thorpe, I know Twyla Thorpe was in charge of it, but how much of Billy's music how much did they use, basically? And what was it like orchestrating the music? Because I know on the recording that I have, it's a huge live band. Did you have to change any of the arrangements? And by the way, I love the documentary. It's great.
I was the assistant musical director of Moving Out, and I also did all the synth programming, and I was involved in all 4 productions, so I was there through the entire creation of the whole thing. It's all Billy's music. Pretty much it was taken. Some of it had to be arranged, and some of the tempos had to be made a lot faster for some of it to accommodate some of the dance moves. It was basically Twyla's brainchild to create what happened to Brenda and Eddie after Italian Restaurant, and she plucked characters from his from other songs. There was an Anthony from Anthony's song, and James, and so on and so forth. So she plucked characters from his music and sort of created a story and wove the whole thing together. Billy was kind of hands-off on the whole thing.
Billy's involvement with it was absolutely zero.
Yeah, he was hands-off.
Basically, it was a license that was an agreement that was, Twyla came to Billy with the idea. He turned it over to his professional team, which was my partner, Ed London, and his attorney, John Eastman. They worked out a financial deal. And then when it came to the musical element of it, Billy turned it over to his team, which was Dave to do the orchestrations, as he said, and Tommy Burns, who helped put together, who's a guitar player in that you saw on stage, to put together the band. Because what it was important to Billy was that if you came and saw the show, that it sounded right. So he wasn't going to tell Twyla how to do dance, and so it was really just that if you came to the show and you were a Billy Joel fan and his name was going to be on the billboard, that it sounded. So Billy did vet the performer, Michael Cavanaugh, who was the original piano player and vocalist for the show. He vetted that, and he trusted his guys to do the music.
Yeah, and I can sort of add to that. I think he was just close enough to embrace it. Should it be successful? And if it wasn't successful, we could say, it's not my idea.
Same thing with the movie.
Hi, I'd just like to comment. This is not the first time I've viewed film, and I think it gets better every time I see it. So kudos to everybody involved.
After 20, you want to go get some dinner, because that's what we did.
Also, I know that it said Billy Joel is definitely a Mets fan, but I have heard some conflicting information.
It
about
doesn't
that.
say he's a Mets fan. There's nowhere in the
did-
movie that it says that, so watch it again.
So,
It
Be careful.
never did. I have to
never
admit.
says.
I
Watch
watched
it
the film a
carefully,
few
it
times.
never says.
I have to watch it again. Thank
Watch
you.
again.
There was another concert sort of across town, you know, in the Bronx at Yankee Stadium back in the early 90s where Billy played 2 nights. It's really the first performance, I think, that had ever been staged there since the Beach Boys had a moment.
It was the first concert in the new renovated Yankee Stadium. It was
Right.
set in the Yankee Stadium video.
And you were both at Yankee
I
Stadium?
was at both the Yankee and
And Shea.
both nights at Shea.
What about Giant Stadium, which was another one? Of
I've
the-
been there, saw him
Right.
with Billy and Elton, both in Giant Stadium, the arena show, and I saw him recently, well, the most recent in Philadelphia.
It's funny, Billy's agent, Dennis Arfa, often referred to, you know, Shea Stadium as the missing, you know, as the missing piece of the Triple Crown. We always looked at, you know, being able to, you know, to conquer New York by playing, you know, each of the giant stadiums, pardon the pun, New Jersey. But
When Billy sang the national anthem at the Subway Series, the first game at Yankee Stadium, right before that he filmed a television special for Elton did a show at Madison Square Garden, and Billy was a special guest. And he did a song, it was on CBS. And when we were backstage before that show, he was talking about singing the national anthem, and I had a close friend of mine, and this was when I was first started working with Billy, 2000. And I had a close friend, he was a Yankee fan, he was wearing it, and he was saying, you know, this is great for New York. Subway Series, I root for New York. And he goes, I don't like to be a Yankee fan. He wants New York to win. I think when you watch this movie and he talks about coming back to New York, he roots for New York. If the Jets are in the Super Bowl, he's going to root for the Jets. If the Mets are in the World Series, he's going to root for the Mets. If the Yankees are there, he's going to root for the Yankees. So I'll leave it at that. You know, the next line in the movie, if you watch the actual concert, when he says, "How many of you are rooting for the Mets? How many of you love the Mets?" His next line at the show were, "How many of you are Yankee fans?" We edited that out. The next line after that is, "How many of you don't give a shit because you're at a rock show?" So.
Hi, 2 questions. One, David, how difficult is it to orchestrate a concert when you're performing before cameras for a DVD or a movie? And just out of curiosity, Todd, is John Eastman related to Linda McCartney?
Yes. Okay. John Eastman is Linda's brother. And that's where the relationship started between, that's actually how Billy came to be, work with the Eastmans, was through, you know, John and his relationship with Paul.
To answer your question about the orchestration is done in advance. It's not actually done during the show. They're playing the music that I had charted out ahead of time. So the work to actually make all that happen is done before the concert, and then by the time we get to the concert, they kind of know what they're doing from rehearsal, and then I turned around and conducted on Lullaby. So it's kind of, all that is done ahead of time.
But it's,
And
like,
the
could you
cameras.
talk-
Let me just answer the question about the cameras. If the cameras were at all invasive, there would not have been a filming. So part of the obstacle that John Small, who was the live producer and director, had to deal with was camera locations that were not necessarily ideal for filming. There was supposed to be, if John would have had his way, there would have been a central, I forget what they call it, but a central track that ran right across what would have been the best seats in the house. And when I actually went to the pre-production meeting and I saw where they wanted to put it, I said, that's not going to happen because there won't be a filming of the concert. And it was moved to the back, that track. So you know, a stadium is actually a lot bigger than an arena, so the cameras are actually less invasive. Like I would say you probably didn't notice it most of the time,
No, we were able to see the cameras that were on the front,
On the stage,
front
right.
of the stage, and the occasional cameraman. But no, they did a pretty good job of staying
Staying
out of the way, which I know is not an accident.
Yeah.
That needs to be arranged.
Yeah. So the answer is that when he went to when he went to Moscow and they were filming it, he got very angry because they had the lights up and they were lighting the show, which was a lot longer ago. The technology wasn't as good. And he got really, really angry and flipped the piano because he thought it was taking away from the live performance. So it is an important thing that an artist considers is, will this be invasive? This was not filmed to be a concert film. This was filmed just to document, but with 19 cameras and a helicopter, so it was pretty extensive.
Yes. Will Billy Joe play in the new Shea Stadium? City Field.
They have invited him. He has not accepted at this time.
He did play with Paul McCartney, though.
He did do one song with Paul when Paul McCartney opened it. The first concert that was played there in July. I think David was at that show too.
No, actually, unfortunately, I had tickets for the second night.
Oh, you went the second night. Billy was busy the second night. He was playing in Foxborough Stadium, in Gillette Stadium the second
I
night.
thought he was flying over to London or something.
No.
Thus far in each of your careers, what has been the most inspiring moment or idea that you've learned?
Idea? I don't know. I say, well, there's many great moments in my career, but I would say that playing these two Shea Stadium shows was definitely amongst the top, I don't know, top 5 in my whole career. It was really great, and having this to document it makes it that much more special too.
Thank you.
As a highlight, I wouldn't say there was a lot of learning that went on for me in making a film. I never worked on making a film before. Being at these shows was definitely a highlight, and being able to work on this project was definitely professionally the most rewarding thing I ever had to do, because since it was, Billy again is very hands off on the whole process, except saying, yeah, you can do this, and then show me it when it's done. And if I don't like it, you'll have to go fix it. But, from a creative perspective, a lot of it was passed around to the team to give their comments. And as being an accountant by trade, I went to school for accounting. I know numbers. And although I got to do the numbers on the project, the fun part was being involved in the creative, because as the film depicts, when Frank was gone, there was no more manager in the picture. So Billy does management by proxy. It's take the people around me that I trust and say, what do you think of this? And sometimes I say, well, what do you mean, what do I think about it? What does it matter what I think? And he's like, well, you're a fan, you're the person who's going to watch it, and it's not for me, So everybody's opinion matters. And growing up in New York, growing up a Billy Joel fan, it was very easy for me to get very close to this project. It was very easy to me to relate to the people that they're talking about in the film. So to me, I was the target demographic for this project. It was easy for me to say, well, this film's great. Well, it's great for me, but what about everybody else? I didn't know, but I liked it.
Oh, I have to give you some props too. There was your idea. We debuted the film at the Tribeca Film Festival and got some great reviews, and a lot of people had a chance to see it. But we were all itching to kind of get it out there in the world. And Todd said, "What about playing it at Citi Field on the screens?" And I think Dennis sort of really embraced the idea. I thought, oh my goodness, putting a film as precious as this up on screens in a ballpark, that's a crazy idea.
Too big. It's too big.
Too big.
That's what Billy said too.
They're just not going to get it,
It's too big. It's not going to work.
It's not going to work. I thought, oh, this is going to be a disaster. Well, 30,000 tickets later, people were standing up as if it was a live event that had taken place at Shea. And it was just a phenomenon. I think it was one of the second largest, outdoor cinema preview in cinema history. So that was another accomplishment that, again, came out of the creative
and we didn't
joy
lose
of
money.
this project.
I was just wondering, at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame concert last year when Billy and Bruce played together, were you guys involved with that?
As an invited guest, I got to go.
Oh, yeah.
So, yes.
I think Bruce's band was up there for a pretty long time, and Billy went up at that time. So I think Bruce's band accompanied Billy that night.
Okay.
Dave didn't. That's one Dave.
I was
missed
home
out
watching on TV.
That was the Billy give back, because at the Obama benefit, it was Billy's band with Bruce. So Bruce got to front Billy's band, and so they had actually asked Bruce, and then Bruce asked Billy to join him. Billy was actually originally invited to play with his band, and he said, I'd been there, done that before, but when Bruce asked him, it was a friend asking and not the organizers of the event, and he couldn't say no to Bruce. So.
Is there any moment in your experience with him when you realized that you were part of something bigger than yourselves, bigger than him, that truly meant something to you?
I would say, you mean in relation to...
Just in general, working with him.
I think my very first gig with Billy was kind of a wake-up call. I mean, I always knew his music and everything, but the first show, which was in Portland, Maine, I think, was '93. It was a warm-up show for that tour. And when that was the first time that I'd actually seen how the fans respond to him from the stage perspective, and it was really, really impressed me, and I was very, very pleasantly surprised and very pleased to be part of the whole thing. And of course, then had no idea that 18 years later I'd still be part of it, but very glad to be here.
Yeah, I think Dave points something out. Is like you when you get introduced to Billy the person and kind of realize that person, that first encounter, that you realize that there's this incredible two worlds that you live in, because he's such a down-to-earth person. So, and you know, I was talking about that Elton show, and to go there with my friend from college, and you know, here we are, we're two kids, and you know, and it's Billy Joel and Elton John, and you're sitting there and you're in awe of these people, and he's talking to you like just another guy. And after a while, you start to get used to hanging out with just the other guy, Billy. You know, to us, he's not that person that the fans are, or the person that I, you know, admired as a fan. Yeah. And it's like this big star. But then when you go on stage, and the bigger the stage, and Shea Stadium being the biggest stage I ever saw him on, it starts to take you back where you say to yourself,
he is that guy.
Oh yeah, he is that guy. Like, he's both guys. He's off the stage, he's that guy who wants to hang out and talk about motorcycles or boats or, you know, politics, but then he gets on stage and he is this fantastic performer. And then, I mean, to me, I got to make this film, and I got to meet Roger Daltrey. I saw The Who at Giant Stadium, Madison Square Garden, and I'm sitting here, and I'm meeting Roger Daltrey, and he's asking me what I thought of him at soundcheck, and I'm sitting there going, did Roger Daltrey just ask me what I thought of him at soundcheck? You know, this is crazy. So, you know, you have those moments quite a bit. I'm lucky enough, Dave's lucky enough, and Jeff's lucky enough to have worked with other people too. But I think what makes Billy different is he takes you off that guard. He takes you where you don't feel like he's that big star. And with a lot of other people, they're very caught up in who they are, and they never turn that off, so you never get to know the person.
Yeah, I can tell you something I was reminded of. When I started, as I say, I guess my favorite moments, in a sense, are those first moments. And I got the job. I didn't have any Billy Joel records. I think I went to Corvettes and bought them all, which was the Piano Man, Street Life, and Turnstiles, and listened to them.
By the way, for those of you who are younger, and a lot of you are, that was a former department store.
EJ Corvettes.
We're starting to date ourselves a little bit.
Exactly.
Todd,
exactly.
We all remember that, but some people out here wouldn't.
I don't remember.
And
I'm not that old.
I had a job. Actually, I was in New York City, and I was a salesman. I was working for this company, and we sold a very special kind of plastic bag that you might see at Bloomingdale's or whatever. Heavy-duty plastic bag that you put, the store image on it, and I was running around New York selling that. So that was my day job, and at night I was trying to get into you don't even know this story, trying to get into the record business. And so suddenly I had this job. I'd met Billy once and his manager wife, and so I got this job as a tour manager. I didn't know what to do. So I show up at the first, gig. I said, get yourself out to the Calderon Theater. Calderon Theater, where's that? Which of course is out east. And so I still had, I didn't give up my day job. I wasn't quite sure, about this tour management job.
Didn't know how long Billy would last, right?
Exactly. But the thing is, I remember, I wasn't that familiar with his music, and suddenly he's up on stage with the band rehearsing this music, and it's like, wow, this guy's really good, So he's jamming, it's kind of loud, and I, sort of got up the gumption, to walk into the phone booth in the lobby. The music's kind of playing still pretty loud, the doors are open, and I get my boss on the line, from the phone booth, and I said, hey, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna, head out on the road with Billy Joel, and he kept saying, can you turn the music down? Just turn the music. I can't hear what you're saying. I said, well, that's my new job. I'll see you later. And off I went.
How you doing? I'm a huge Billy Joel fan, so I see Billy as this great, huge superstar. And one point in the film that shocked me was when he had turned to the crowd and said, I invited all of these other guests, The Who, Tony Bennett, because, to help his insecurity. And I was kind of shocked at that. Like, to me, he's this huge superstar. Is he really that humble?
Yeah. I mean, when I was in Sag Harbor after he agreed to do the show, and he said to me, and I think I told Dave the story over the phone.
That was some conversation, by the way.
And he said to me, I don't know who's going to pay money to see me. Like, who's going to sit at the top of Shea Stadium to see me? And I was like, do you want me to give you a list of 1,000 people from my neighborhood?
You never called me, though.
And he really did go down that list. And the list was like, all of the people who had called me in the past and I did shows for. So it was like, and some of those people you saw, and some of those people had other things to do. But some of them actually appear in the film, even though they didn't appear at the show. So he went, well, let's see, I did Farm Aid for Mellencamp. I did Walden Woods for Henley. I did Rainforest so Sting can come. And obviously you see Sting in the movie talking about it. He's a close friend of Billy's, but he had a small gig with a band that he put back together. I don't know. He was
Central Park with Garth Brooks.
Central Park with Garth Brooks, and I guess that police got in the way, and a little police tour that they did, and a couple $100 million later, they, but he actually agreed to simulcast, and Billy said, no, it's got to be live. But that was the list, and then he actually told me that day, and I think I'm going to invite Paul and Ringo to close the show. And as we talked about, they share an attorney. So when I walked out, my first call from this, kitchen table was, Lee, you got to hear this idea. Not only is he going to invite all these special guests, he's going to invite Paul. And I didn't say Ringo. And he's like, Paul's not going to come. It's not going to happen. Paul's not going to do it. And I was like, no, you didn't hear the best part. He's going to ask Paul to close the show. Maybe he'll come. And of course, the invitation went out, and Paul said no. And, what had then happened was, Paul, John Eastman, and Lee were at the show Wednesday night, and Billy made those comments about the Beatles. Paul, obviously, you all know, has gotten divorced, and he has shared custody of his daughter. The reason he couldn't come Wednesday night was because he had custody of his daughter, and if you've seen anything publicly, that relationship is not the best relationship, so he doesn't miss his custody visits. And so he told Billy, look, thanks for inviting me, but, I have to be with my daughter. Billy, who raised a daughter that way, totally understood and said it's not going to happen. On Thursday, after the first show, Wednesday night, Lee spoke to Paul and was telling him what Billy said about the Beatles. Best band that was, best band that ever will be, and thanks for letting us use your room. And he was scheduled to be on a plane the next day. And he said, maybe I can make it. And it was literally that afternoon that I got a call from Lee on the cell phone that said, where's Billy? And Lee has two people that he hangs up on me for, Billy and Paul. And I was like, he's about to get on his boat to come to the show. Okay, I got to go. I said, who's on the other line? And he was patching, Paul through to Billy, exactly how they tell it in the story. And Paul said to Billy, what do you think? So this buzz started to spread when Billy got to the got to the gig.
We found out at like
Uh,
4 in the
yeah,
afternoon.
4 in
something
the
like
afternoon when
that he was going to try to make it.
He was going to try
'Cause
to make it.
There
and-
really was no guarantee.
Right.
At that time, we did not know if it was going to be physically
And
possible.
it was just a question of whether that plane was going to land on time. And that's when everybody started to go around. There's someone from Homeland Security that works at Shea Stadium, because after September 11th, there's one person assigned to Shea Stadium, one person assigned to Yankee Stadium. That guy was in the office. He was going to make a phone call. Someone called the mayor's office. Someone called the Port Authority director. And it was, I mean, the amount of coordination is, it's very rare that you can get a New York City police car, because the Port Authority is the Port Authority police. They allowed a New York City Police Department cars on the tarmac at JFK to allow this caravan to get to the show on time. So
How nerve-wracking was that? Would they make it? What would they not?
you know, it wasn't really nerve-wracking because
It was out of our hands. It was either going to happen or it
they
wasn't.
were doing the show. I mean, the way it affected the show, it's there's a little bit of drama that's added to this by saying, you know what, let's start the show a little bit later. It's Friday night. People don't have to get home that early. So the Friday night show started a little bit later than the Wednesday night show. And, we'll add a song. We'll drag it out a little bit to give him every opportunity to make it. But if he didn't make it, the people were going to get their money's worth. I mean, that second night was, we had, that was Daltrey and Steven Tyler, Garth Brooks, and
John Mellencamp was the second night too, was it? Or was it the first
no,
night?
John was the first night. It was Daltrey, Mellencamp, Brooks, and Tony Bennett. So the fans weren't going to go. They weren't going to know they missed anything. They were only going to know if they got that special ending. And even after that first song was done, and then Billy did Piano Man, nobody knew they were coming back
we
out.
didn't know. It was unrehearsed as well.
Yeah, it
We
was
just went up and
unrehearsed.
did it. Yeah.
So
And I think that was one of the magical things about the whole show, because none of these artists were announced. So every time somebody came up, the whole crowd didn't know what was going to happen
I mean,
next. And it was
being there,
really a magical.
It was
magical
interesting
thing.
because being there, you'd see signs that say Paul, and it's like, well, guess what? Paul's not coming today because I know he's in London. There were signs there Wednesday night, and there were signs there Friday night.
We were, as a fan, we were all talking about that.
Right.
Was he
And-
coming out? Was he
and
not?
Everybody said Elton was going to be there. Everybody, because they had toured so much together, it was a natural thing that Elton would be there. And if Elton weren't on tour himself, he would have been there, but he wasn't. But I mean, the list of other people who were talked about, I mean, my firm represents Bob Dylan. I had a conversation with his management team, and at the last minute, I got a phone call that said, if Bob wants to stop by, Bob may want to stop by because he was given an invitation. And I was like, oh, this is bad. Now I'm in the middle because I talked to Dylan's management team. Band's not rehearsed to have Dylan come out. What if Bob shows up and Billy doesn't want him there? So again, now I have to call Billy to say Bob may show up. Not yes, not no. And you don't say no to Bob Dylan. So I'm sitting there going, how did I get in the middle of this? And then I call Billy, and this is where it's, like I said, Billy's so not, he has the same reaction I did. He's like, can't say no to Bob Dylan. Tell him, come,
Dave, how would you have dealt with it?
I would have called Todd.
Todd, I just have one last question, then I think.
I just wanted to add
go ahead, I'm
one
sorry.
last thing.
Go right ahead.
I don't
My
think
God.
this is pointed out in the movie, but Billy was actually wearing Ringo's star on his lapel.
Yeah.
All four of the Beatles wore those stars at the Shea Stadium.
Yeah, it's a Wells Fargo badge that was on the lapel of Billy's jacket on the Friday night show.
Which Ringo had given to him
Which-
because he wasn't able to make the
Right.
show. Is it?
My last question for everybody here is, how long from start to finish, from time you decided, there's going to be a show, until the film came out? How long of a time was that?
Almost 2 years. The movie premiered in May of 2010 and literally we were editing up until the final moment of that, but that was May of Tribeca, right. That was May of 2010, and obviously the event, we actually started filming for the event the months leading up to the show. So the filming started in about May or June of 2008, and obviously the concerts were in 2008. So
Yeah, as a fan, I was very concerned because I remember on my ticket it says, you give permission to be filmed on the ticket stub itself. And I kept going onto Billy Joel's site and saying, when is this coming out? When is this coming out? Because the night was just an amazing, amazing feel. And I think we're all going to be very lucky next week when we have an opportunity to see the film. But I think we'll have one lucky person here tonight have an opportunity to win the CD and the DVD, which is coming out on Tuesday. So you'll be the first ones in Brooklyn, first ones around to have it.
I can also add to that, if you're fans and you want to know more about the story, you know, our website is really improved, billyjoel.com, and there's lots of stuff. There's a series, a question and answer series, which we started, another Todd idea, actually, and we've gotten great reaction. It's just, it's a really good insight into Billy, how he thinks about his writing, his life.
How he would answer a lot of these questions.
Yes.
Most of them are taken from lecture series. He loves this kind of format, and if any of you heard him on Howard Stern, where Howard was just peppering him with questions, and Howard said it was the best interview he ever did, but Billy's just, his responses are so natural and so honest, and in these, he actually went on tour for over a year doing colleges and just answering questions, and a lot of them were taped on VHS, and Jeff, as part of his role as archivist, has taken those old VHS tapes and converted them into digital formats, and rather than figure out a way to monetize it, we're just saying, let's just give it to the fans. Let's just allow the fans to have access, and we post a new one every week or so of another question, because it seems exploitive to sell it, and it seems only right that people get to see it.
And that was also his spirit, was it was his way. Those shows were always a way of for him to give back this massive amount of information and knowledge, you know, through lessons learned and mistakes, and hey, here's how you do it. And it's well worth checking out. Also, a little further down the road, in June, it'll be announced tomorrow, his autobiography comes out called The Book of Joel.
See,
Memoir.
you have information that nobody else has.
That's true, very
That's
true.
it. So how about Jeff, since you're the archivist, why don't you ask a question about Billy Joel? Winner gets the new DVD and the 2 CD pack.
I'm gonna ask the question. That's hard. That's hard. David, you could go. You ask the question.
Who's his archivist?
Come on, Jeff.
Someone's going to pass it over to Todd. I know that's coming next.
You can't come up with a question?
I can't come up with a question. I'm sort of on the spot, a little nervous. Oh, my goodness. Pardon me? No, I can't even think of a question. I'm too kind of stumped.
He's an answer man, that's why. He's not a question man.
All right, I'll do it. Uh-oh. People have seen my exams. They're terrified now, I know. Okay. As a lot of you know, I'm from Long Island. Okay, so is Billy Joel. Billy Joel has a song called Scenes from an Italian Restaurant. What is the name of the restaurant that it's named about? Natalie, you are not included. Sorry, that's my wife.
That's a good trivia
See,
question.
the archivist knew that answer, but
I couldn't think of the question.
And I know there are people around here who lived around that area who should know this answer.
Okay.
Anybody have the name of that answer?
That's too tough a question. I
That
think we
seems
got
like
it
it's
done this
becoming
time.
tough.
it's not mentioned in the song.
No, it's not.
It's a pretty tough question.
All right. Pick it. False. Todd, come on. Help me out. What a question. Yeah. By the way, the answer going once, twice, 3 times. The answer to that, by the way, you have an answer? Okay.
Fontana di Trevi.
Sorry. I'll give you one more hint. For those of you who know me, what town do I live in?
That's the place.
I live in Syosset. The restaurant is in Syosset, right near the Syosset train
but
station.
it's not entirely wrong, and if you look that up on the internet, it's not entirely wrong because
Oh, wow.
words.
Is it fair if I answer?
Words to the song, I think, were written in.
Right, there was, across from Carnegie Hall, there was a restaurant called Fontana di Trevi.
Right.
He would have takeout food from there and bring it back to his
There's a
apartment.
lot of inspirations.
Oh, okay. So there's more than one Italian restaurant? Okay. So you say
So
that's
it's
the
not
right
complete-
answer?
It's not completely wrong.
Actually, that's the place that Billy took me out to dinner the first night I was in the band.
See?
Oh, okay.
What was the first place that Billy took David out when he first joined the band?
We thank our special guests, Todd, Dave, and Jeff. Thanks a lot, and thanks a lot for coming.